If we want to preserve our constitutional republic, we need an informed and educated citizenry. And that's what this show is all about. Find out what's really happening. It's time to stop the lies and learn the truth. This is The Real Story with your host, Jeannie Ives.
All right. Thanks for joining me tonight. The phone number here, 312-642-5600 if you want to weigh in on the conversation. Wow, wasn't Rob Handlin great? I mean, what a wealth of information. That's why we call this The Real Story. We put the people who are in the midst of the fight, who are actually the ones who are doing the work, we put them on air so you can hear the stories that you need to hear and be informed about as a voter. That's why we do what we do. And our next guest is no exception. It is State Representative Chris Miller. He represents the 101st State Representative District. That's down really kind of, I think he touches on Shelby County, but it's definitely in the EIU area, so Eastern Illinois University. He also is an Angus beef farmer, so I appreciate that. And we have, we'll talk about it, but we'll talk about the beef labeling stuff and the contrast between Illinois and the state of Florida on that one as well. But I wanted to have him on because last week in Springfield, I think was probably one of the worst weeks that I've seen in Springfield. And that's saying a lot because we've had a lot of bad weeks down there. But the shenanigans continue, and the hard left progressive radical agenda continues in Springfield, and the political games continue in Springfield. So, Chris Miller, welcome to the program. Thank you for coming on tonight.
Well, hi, Jeannie, and thanks for having me. I look forward to the conversation this evening.
Well, let's start with the first things first. So on Wednesday, State Representative, why am I blanking on his name? Jay Hoffman. Oh, yeah, Rod Blagojevich's best friend. That's how long he's been around. Literally, Rod Blagojevich's best friend in Springfield. He took a Senate bill that dealt with child welfare and did the classic Democrat gimmick. He gutted it completely, and with a floor amendment, replaced it with essentially an election bill. And this election bill did three things. It basically said no more party slating. It added 3 advisory questions to the 2024 ballot, which crowded out the advisory referendum that I've been involved with for the last 5 months. And it also changed the date when you can start to circulate petitions and when they have to be filed. And then Governor Pritzker signs it in less than 48 hours. Tell me about that. Tell me about that fight. Tell me about, what it felt like and what was going on.
Well, it's not, we've seen this movie before, and it's just another election year gimmick crafted in the bad idea factory. It's another attack on democracy and process. And, because we saw like you say, this was a complete gut and replace, and within 48 hours, the governor signed it and put it into law. And, and it's just a tactic of intimidation and fear-mongering, trying to use some progressive ideologies to scare people and to cheat constituents from absolutely knowing the truth.
Yes, so I was trying to get a handle on it because let's talk specifically about the slating aspect of it. There's a number of districts that right now they have no opponent on both the Democrat side and the Republican side. So there's this process whereby after the primary, you have until about 90 days, or I don't remember how many days, 60 days after the primary, that you can slate a candidate. A political party can slate a candidate in an open seat, or not necessarily an open seat, but where there's no contender. And you still have to get the proper number of signatures in that amount of time to file. But what was the feeling down in caucus? What did you guys talk about? Were there particular races that the Democrats felt they might be vulnerable on, and so they wanted to basically take away slating?
Well, the one that sticks out in my mind the most would be down in the Metro East with Katie Stewart, and I think that the Democrats think that she is vulnerable just because of the not being able to define who a woman is, and some guys in the girls' bathroom, tampons in the boys' bathroom, and just, a myriad of really bad votes that she took, let alone, increasing taxes and all of the above. She's extremely woke, and so I would guess that would be one race that they would have to be extremely concerned about. But I know that, our thoughts in our caucus was how can we throw sand in their gears and slow down the process and not engage in their far left radical rhetoric. And we thought the best thing that we could do is to not give them an audience, and that way they can't try to define who we are and what we stand for. Rather, they just introduced the bill. We didn't offer any debate at all. We voted president and walked off the floor and did a press conference to explain why we voted president and walked off the floor. So, in essence, we were able to define the terms and who we are and what we stood for, and to completely expose the attack on the process and on democracy as a whole.
Yeah, no, I don't actually disagree with that tactic, because the minute you get, Kelly Cassidy up there talking about what she wants to talk about, that's what gets reported in the papers. So I think also, to some degree, the papers saw this as somewhat of a scam as well. Especially going to the 3 ballot questions that they discussed, and I thought your discussion about this was very good, in that they wanted 3 advisory ballot questions to be on the 2024 ballot. The first one said that if you're a candidate for political office, that essentially you would be facing civil penalties if you tried to interfere in any way with an election worker.
Right.
You can't do that anyway. But they want to poll test. They want to poll the electorate on the ballot on whether or not they think that's a good thing. That's 100%. 100% people don't think you should interfere with an election worker, especially if you're a candidate. So that's just driving turn up. The number 2 question dealt with whether or not you wanted a millionaire's tax, a 3% millionaire's tax, to then, on the opposite end, move that money into property tax relief. Well, who in this state doesn't want property tax relief? I mean, come on. Now, the millionaire's tax got defeated before, but everyone wants property tax credit. And then the third question, essentially, I'm trying to remember what the third one was now, the third ballot question. I can't remember. Can you, Chris? I'll look it up quick.
If you give me a minute, I'll
yeah, exactly. It was another one of those stupid provisions which they already know the answer to, right? Isn't that right? They already know the answer to these questions?
Yeah. Well, and, to me...
Oh, wait a minute. I got it. The third,
in vitro fertilization.
Yeah, that's right. IVF. Whether or not they wanted insurance companies to cover IVF, which, that's not something that, people are going to say no to. So go ahead.
Well, one thing that they're completely disingenuous, because these are non-binding resolutions, and I think that if you remember, was it in 2014 they had some kind of ballot question that was a non-binding resolution? I can't remember the details of it, but the thing that sticks out to me, they actually brought it to after they got the information, and they actually put this on the ballot. They put it on the House floor, and I think there was 16 votes on this non-binding resolution. And another thing, all of these initiatives are disingenuous, because the real reason why they put those 3 on there was to keep the parental rights question being put on the ballot.
That's exactly
because they
right.
knew the outcome of that. And I think that's another thing, the reason why they're completely disingenuous in this. Really, do we need a question on the ballot whether we should lower property taxes or not? If you think that needs to be a ballot question, you're an idiot, and you have no business being in the General Assembly.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. This is just this is just classic playing politics at the end of the day. I don't know how they live with themselves, other than they just must know their voters, and they must know the media. The media's not really going to dig into this. Nobody's really reading the Chicago Tribune on this or Crane Chicago Business. They're not reading these reports. They're just getting whatever they can from the social media, and all the Dems are doing is saying, "Oh, we want to lower property taxes with a 3% millionaires tax," and nobody even knows what that number means. They don't even understand if that does anything. I don't think it would move the needle on property tax relief in this state. So it's all a joke.
Yeah, it is all a joke. It's all theater. It's all like what you said before. It's all election year gimmickry, and they aren't really looking for any solutions or any answers. And by the way, if you think about it, they have a supermajority, all right? And if they want property tax relief, they can do it. If they want tax relief, they can do it. Anything they want to do, they have the votes to reform, restore, do whatever they want to do. And so this idea that they need permission from somebody to actually do the right thing is just silly.
Okay, we're going to hold you over past the break, Chris. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about this massive tax incentive to Rivian and the massive cost of funding injectable weight loss drugs for state employees. So we'll be right back with more from State Representative Chris Miller.
Now, more of The Real Story with your host, Jeannie Ives.
All right, welcome back. We still have State Representative Chris Miller on the line, and we were going to discuss a few more things that are going on in Springfield. Let's start with this. I mean, Pritzker's going to give Rivian Automotive $827 million in tax incentives and credits, subsidies. That's unbelievable. Okay, that beats the Goshen deal by about $300 million. And the original Rivian package, I don't know, maybe that's 8 years old, was $50 million. $50 million. Now they're going to get $827 million for $1.5 billion investment in their Normal, Illinois plant and the hiring of 550 employees. That was $1.5 million per employee. Chris, what the hell?
You have to wonder what these people are thinking about. I know Ford Motor Company just released their first quarter losses of sales on electric vehicles, and they lost $1.3 billion, which amounted to around approximately $132,000 per vehicle that they lost. And I know that these major companies are pulling the plug on their EVs because nobody wants to buy them, and they don't work. They're not practical. The charging stations are not available. I mean, the whole thing is a doggone disaster, and this will be a disaster also. This Rivian plant will be bankrupt within 5 years. You can write it down. Almost all these things that they're doing to try to promote this is all driven by subsidies and tax dollars and incentives. And if they were a standalone company from the get-go, they wouldn't even have gotten this far. And so this whole thing is a nightmare for the Illinois taxpayers.
It's a scam. It's a scam. So Rivian was going to put $5 billion into an EV plant to build their R2 vehicle down in Georgia, and they completely pulled back from that. Now we know why they pulled back from it. They knew it was not going to make any money. So just to kind of keep the party going, they go to Illinois. They know Pritzker's, he's got just he's got fantasies about being the EV capital of America. And so he knew that they knew they could extract a good deal from him, and they did. This is outrageous. Outrageous.
It's absolutely true. And I know that, the problem is they already have brand new EV graveyards that they're stockpiling these vehicles because nobody wants to buy them. And so I'm not sure if they have a reclamation plan or a recycling plan for all these EVs that are sitting around that nobody wants to buy.
So the other thing is they did this deal. They announced the deal on Thursday. And this Tuesday is when Rivian's first quarter report comes out. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't think that first quarter report's going to be rosy at all.
No, it'll be a disaster. It's all predictable.
Yeah.
It'll be a complete disaster because this whole green energy fantasy is a complete train wreck.
Yep.
And, it'll bankrupt Illinois and it'll bankrupt the rest of the United States eventually if they don't get their head out of their hind end.
Yeah, no kidding. And these are state tax credits. Does not even include the federal tax credits that also they would try and glam onto. Now, I just want to know, does Pritzker really think that he knows more than Ford Motor Company about how to run a car company? Don't you think that's a good question?
Again, please.
Don't you? Does Pritzker really think he knows more about how to run a car company than Ford? Because Ford's backing away.
I don't know exactly how his brain works, because if you would just, if you just look at the big picture here and you see a major company that's been building cars for a long, long time and has a lot of market success, whether it be their truck lineup or, the rest of their car lineup. I mean, they have had a tremendous success story over time, and they're throwing all this stuff in the garbage. And so J.B. Pritzker thinks that he knows more than the Ford executives that have a history of success. It's mind-boggling.
Okay, let's talk about another scam, and that's the scam that was hidden in last year's budget bill, and apparently was hidden it was put into the budget bill by Governor Pritzker's staff, and nobody on the Democrat side really looked into it, never looked at the cost of it. But one of his staffers, and literally WBEZ did a great job on this story, and Dave McKinney's a good reporter, and he said that was hidden in the lines of last year's budget bills was this requirement that forced taxpayers to pay for expensive weight loss injectables for fat government employees. The cost is estimated to be $210 million and maybe triple that in 1 year. And he wrote, Governor J.B. Pritzker's office pushed to expand the coverage of the high-priced weight loss drugs, a quiet maneuver that could cost Illinois millions of dollars. And they, this is just unreal. I mean, nobody reads the budget bills. Nobody gets time to read the budget bills in detail. Not even the Democrat staffers knew this. And an expert said this could cost up to $500 million just for this one very expensive drug.
Oh, I believe it. It's just a further revelation of the complete incompetency. And there's one thing that we know about this is JB's not using it. Just a practical observation.
Yeah, no, I mean he's got full access to it if he wants to. I'm sure he's on state employee health care too. I mean it's just remarkable though that good for WBZ for putting out this report. Where else would we going to hear from it? I mean, this is an outrageous cost.
That's one of the problems with our budget is that. We've seen this over and over and again. As they meet behind closed doors, they put a budget together with no transparency, with no public knowledge. They drop it, and within a few hours, they expect people to vote on a 2,000 or 3,000 page budget, and nobody knows what's in it. And that's the reason why I voted no on the budget every year since I've been here, because it's impossible to know what's wrong. Another thing that nobody wants to talk about is that in the past 5 years, when I came in off the same time J.B. Pritzker did, and our budget was approximately $38 billion at that time. This year is projected to be $53 billion, approximately $15 billion more. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, we've bled population. We've lost a congressional seat. We've had some major corporations leave the state of Illinois, but we just keep spending more money. And until we have the courage to do a forensic audit on where the money's going, we aren't ever going to be able to fix the budget.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about one more thing. You posted this up on your Facebook, and it's great. Governor Ron DeSantis signs a ban on lab-grown meat. Now,
absolutely.
Isn't that great? I mean, why would you want meat grown in a test tube? But J.B. Pritzker has doubled down. I think he's put together tax credits for a California company to come here and do lab-grown meat.
No, it's just unbelievable that he would. I mean, basically, it's an attack on agriculture. It's an attack on the family farm. It's an attack on the beef producers here in the state of Illinois. And, and it's just not here, but it's expanding other places also. And it's just another ridiculous bad idea brought to you by the Bad Idea Factory, which is J.B. Pritzker's and his pillars in the Capitol in Springfield.
Yeah, well, my cousin who raises beef in South Dakota, he always said, it's almost a miracle. These cows will eat, all sorts of plant-based food, and they turn it into a steak. So guess what? A steak is plant-based food. There's no way around it, right?
Yep, and it's really good, too.
It's awesome. There's nothing like a great steak at night. He's State Representative Chris Miller, father of 7, grandfather of, 20? What are you up to, 21?
Yep, we're up to 20. We had our first grandchild graduate from high school, and we had a big party this evening.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for joining us tonight, Chris. We appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to do so.